the winner, and still running the West, your Los Angeles Dodgers. Hey, UCLA says that they're transfer U, which may be true. But I think USC has a little something to say about that. And oh, by the way, here's a good question. What exactly are the Chargers getting for that big money contract that they gave Derwin James? Good morning. I'm James, and this is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is Faithful Angelenos. I'm in a terrific mood. The Dodgers did what they were supposed to do. What's not to like? Hey, if you like the content that we've been putting out about LA sports, including today, September 14th, 2022, clickety-clack the like button, clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notifications bell. Hit that. It'll let you know when we drop new content. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And yes, comment, because I'm not perfect. I totally get it. By the way, thank you to the new subscriber who joined our little channel. I appreciate every last one of you. Quick look at the scoreboard. We've been worrying about the Dodgers pitching. The Dodgers, Clayton Kershaw last night threw 7 shutout innings. Matter of fact, the Diamondbacks haven't scored in the first 2 games of the series overall. By the way, Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy, Joey Gallo, they all hit home runs. Dodgers 4, Arizona 0. The Dodgers win the Western Division. Also, LAFC has sort of staunched the bleeding. Carlos Vela scores. However, it leads to a tie. LAFC 1, Minnesota United 1. Today, meanwhile, the Dodgers will play at Arizona at 6:40. Michael Grove for LA, he's 0-0. Zach Davies is 2-4 for the Diamondbacks. And Vancouver will host the LA Galaxy. That game takes place at 7 p.m. Here's the situation with the Galaxy. Currently out of the playoff picture. If they win and Real Salt Lake loses tonight to Austin, the Galaxy jump over RSL and they would be back in the playoff race if the playoffs had started today. So, the football team over at UCLA has declared itself transfer U because it, quote, successfully utilized more transfers since 2020. Now, I will grant you 2020 is not exactly a big time frame to look at, but I can actually see their point. They have 20 starters from the transfer portal since 2020. And they're not just random people either. These are ones you've heard of. Zach Charbonnet, their damn good running back, is from the transfer portal. Jake Bobo, the wide receiver from Duke. You have an entire defensive line, which is almost entirely made up of transfers. 1 from USC, 2 from North Texas. They've got a lot of people that they can claim. You can even argue that if you use the transfer portal to get to UCLA, you can then use that as a springboard to get to the NFL. Just ask Britton Brown. But it did get me to thinking, what about the Trojans, right? The Trojans, they rebuilt their team on the fly using the transfer portal because so many of them left last year because they knew when Lincoln Riley was coming in instead of Clay Helton that they weren't playing games anymore. And on top of that, the Trojans might get themselves a Heisman Trophy out of all those transfers. Quarterback Caleb Williams. They'd probably get a 1,000-yard rusher, Travis Dye. The current defending Biletnikoff Award winner, Jordan Addison, also on the transfer portal. So, and many more, which we could get to. So which school really is transfer U? Now, I'm not trying to assert that it most definitely is USC. I just think the question's interesting. Speaking of transfers for USC, they picked up a defensive back from Colorado, Mekhi Blackman. And Lincoln Riley just loves the guy. Lincoln Riley's faith, I would argue, was even rewarded last week in the game against Stanford. Tanner McKee tried to go at this guy, Blackman, 10 times. And what was the result? Well, 3 completions and an interception. So, yeah, maybe there is something to be said. We don't know necessarily everything about this USC defense. We don't even know if they're going to be getting competent or whatever. But we do know that they like their defensive back, and they might have good reason to. Also, we don't know, speaking of defense, if Romello Height will be playing for the Trojans this weekend against Fresno State. His shoulder is in a sling. I want to talk to you for a moment about the Chargers. All through training camp, Derwin James wasn't out there with the fellas. He wasn't there on the field because he was in a contract year. It wasn't exactly a holdout. You know, he didn't want to be that guy who was raising a stink in the press. And he signs his contract. So now in that first game with the brand new contract, what do you get? Well, you get a sack. You get a pass breakup. But most importantly, Derwin James played 5 different positions for the Chargers in their victory against the Raiders on Sunday, including some play on defensive line. That is impressive. A defensive back going in there with the 300-pounders and fighting them off. I can respect that. Now, also, what I can tell you is that there were some roster moves for the Chargers. It is, quote, not looking great, unquote, for Keenan Allen to play Thursday against the Chiefs. Now, by the way, we will have a preview of the Chargers match against Kansas City coming out later today on the channel. Also, the Bolts have added defensive tackle Bryden Fehoke to the practice squad. So there is that. Quick note on the Rams. How close was Aaron Donald to retiring? We have no idea. I'm about to give you a little story. Whether or not you put any legitimacy to it is on you. The agent for Aaron Donald sent a letter to the Rams, but it was addressed to NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell saying Aaron Donald retires. But the letter did not go to Roger Goodell. So they're saying this is showing how close Aaron Donald was to retiring. I'm just thinking it sounded a little bit more like a negotiating ploy, if you ask me. Like a thinly veiled threat. But you tell me. After all, all's well that ends well. He did sign. He is back. Notes on your NL West winning Dodgers. The first thing is an opinion, but it's a very strong one. Do not call the Dodgers the NL West champions. There is no such thing as a division champion. There's no parade for a division champion. There's no trophy. There's no ring for a division champion. For that matter, there's no trophy or ring if you win the National League. There is only one team that gets the parade. There's only one team that gets the trophy. Only one team that gets the whole kit and caboodle. Now, the Dodgers players know this, which is why their celebrations have been subdued. They've been here before. So as fans, I think we ought to appreciate that. And kind of act as if that model applies. The Dodgers are going big game hunting. So the division thing, that's part of the process. For the roster, Dave Roberts expects Blake Trinan to be back with the team by the end of September. One person who is back is Tommy Conley, so the relief pitching gets a little bit of a boost. And Gavin Lux, he hasn't played for the last couple of weeks, but he will hit against Yency Almonte prior to the game tonight. It's part of his rehab process to see how that's going. So you remember when LAFC, they were going to shatter every record imaginable. They were going to get the most points. They were going to win the Supporters' Shield going away. They have 3 games left, and they've fallen behind the Philadelphia Union. So, maybe not. The whole thing about beating the record for the most points in the season is definitely off the table. They can't do that. What I can tell you is, if LAFC, with the 3 matches left, not counting the one last night, 3 matches left, if they catch the Union, they will get the Supporters' Shield, do a tiebreaker. But all of this was supposed to be a fait accompli. So I hate to say this. Actually, I don't hate to say this. I enjoy asking this question. Do we look back on all of those players that LAFC added in the transfer portal as a mistake? Because they did nothing but, with the exception of Giorgio Chiellini, everybody was an attacker. Everybody. They rebuilt the team. To me, in my opinion, and I'm not a soccer expert, that team looked extremely lopsided. They let the back line and the midfield go to seed just to have a whole bunch of people who could shoot, which is fine if you have people who can get the ball to the shooters. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm here to tell you, I am by no means a soccer expert, but I was sitting there scratching my head over all these additions. It just looked like, oh, we're just going to get one big name after another. And what's the result? Did you know that LAFC, with Gareth Bale, one of those transfers, with Gareth Bale on the pitch, has allowed 7 more goals than they've scored when he's on the pitch? When he wasn't on the pitch, they have scored 28 more goals than the opposition. If that's not a symbol of what's going on with LAFC, I don't know what is. Speaking of strikers, Carlos Vela, the reason that he turned down the Mexican national team was finally released. He did not want to play for Mexican team manager Tata Martino because he's too strict, including too strict with the people who were allowed to join in the hotels and the training camps. Which is kind of hilarious because that's how Chicharito got kicked off the team in the first place. Oh, that guy was real popular in the hotels after the games. A lot of people loved partying it up with Little P after the game, I'm here to tell you. At least that's the rumor. I was not sitting there smashing tequilas with the all-time leading scorer of the Mexican national team. But yeah, being strict has its punishments. And not getting top players is apparently one of them. Speaking of Chicharito, Galaxy manager Greg Vanney will not confirm that Chicharito's days as a penalty kick taker are over. Quote, that will be determined, unquote, said Vanney. I think the numbers pretty much determine it for me. You know, I mean, the numbers of Chicharito from the penalty spot since he came to MLS, he is the Shaquille O'Neal of penalty shot takers. He has made only 4 of 9. A penalty kick is literally as easy as the instructions on a bar of soap. Wet it, wipe it, good night. That's literally all it's supposed to be, and Chicharito can't do that with the Galaxy. His days of a penalty shot keeper should be over. If he's anywhere near that, there needs to be a fist fight in the locker room after the game. And I like the guy. But hey, I'm still in a great mood. By the way, we'll have a rapid recap after the Galaxy match tonight. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We are building something for LA sports. Thanks for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Quién Corte El Queso production. Take care.